Hello, I'm back here again. You might have to forgive the mess that I'm in, but I just wanted to tell you about an experience I had yesterday. Uh, it's a bit bizarre, really, but for a little while on Audio T's website, they've been banging on about the Southampton Audio T store, and they've been having a few events over the last few weekends. The one that I was interested in, because I've spoken about it on here before, was their Queen event. Because on Friday, i.e. the 25th of September, that was the day that the coloured vinyl box set of the Queen albums was released. It was also the day that the Riga Queen turntable was released. And I thought, let's go and hear one of these Queen turntables. Just so that I can come back and report to you chaps on YouTube. Right, well, let's start at the very beginning, shall we? I left Hastings, where I live, at 11:15 on yesterday morning, and I didn't get there till nearly 5 o'clock. The train journey is an agonising train journey, and there are about 250 stops in between Brighton and Southampton. And when I got there, I realised that the Audio T store is not actually in Southampton itself, but it's in some tiny village that's sort of part of the Southampton sort of umbrella kind of thing. It's far more way out of the way than other Audio T stores that I've seen, and it's not a particularly big store. Having said that, the people in there were very nice to me. They heard my tale of woe, and although, because apparently, well, not apparently, truly, there have only been 2,000 of these Queen turntables made, and as well as that, that there are only 500 of them for sale in Britain. Okay, so that's a worldwide release of this turntable. Okay, they're selling like hotcakes. Audio T Southampton got 7 of them, of which they sold 5. And 2 were earmarked for sale, and they didn't want to open one up and play it to me. So I spoke to them about it anyway. And apparently, because I'm a wee tiny bit wrong about my assessment of the Queen turntable, if you look at my video that I made about it, I'd kind of branded it as basically an RP1. Because it has most of the components of the RP1, but apparently the motor in it is the same as the RP3, so it's an upgraded turntable on that account. Okay, so I said to them, well, why are they selling it with a carbon cartridge then? Because a Riga carbon cartridge really is their lowest common denominator of a cartridge. You know, it's a few quid. And the answer I got to that was, well, a lot of people are buying it with the BIOS cartridge. Well, so it's not really an answer really, except to say that it keeps the cost down. So perhaps people who've never owned a turntable, or at least a modern turntable in these days of the so-called vinyl revival. I didn't really get much joy on the Queen front, although I did buy some albums there, because they did have a guy there that had brought his own store into Audio T, or his own stock into Audio T, to sell it, as it were. So I bought a couple of albums there. And while I was buying those albums, there was some music, I know not what. It was playing on an RP6 with an exact. This is just a base spec RP6 with no mods or anything like that, playing through a Brio and the RX1 stand mount speakers, and it sounded very nice. It wasn't set up properly. It was only in the window of the shop, and if my memory serves me correctly, I could be wrong here, but if my memory serves me correctly, it was piled up onto, because the RP6 comes in lots of different colours, and it was piled up onto a stack of those different plinths. So not particularly well set up, and the speakers weren't far enough apart and all that sort of thing, because it was in the shop window, but it still sounded really nice, really good. I tried to do a discrete assessment of the listening, just to sort of comment on the sound quality or whatever. It sounds like a hi-fi playing music, and it will give you a nice feel-good factor. It will give you, I would imagine, years of fun playing good records. It's one of those systems that it sounds like it will, make it, give some kind of estimation of what it was like back in the day, back in the 70s when I were a wee boy. And you grabbed your pile of singles and you plonked them on this record player thing with an automatic drop down thing, and although it wasn't the last word in sound quality at all, it still felt really good. And I think that's the kind of feel good buzz times 100 that you will get from an RP6 with a Brio and a pair of RX1s. The RX1s were on stands. The stands were £100 essentially. So that would take if you were buying those RX1s, it would take them up to £900, which again is what I was saying in my last speaker video, really, that £900 is more or less, it's within a whisker of buying a pair of good stand mounts. So a good floor standing speaker. I think I'm probably right there. The common sense thing would be for me, if it were me buying in that kind of ballpark, to get a good pair of floor standing speakers as opposed to speakers on stands. Okay, so I'm buying these albums and there are a few blokes there, and one of the guys says to me, look, we've got an RP10 with an Elicit and some PMC 2026 speakers. Would you like to hear those? So I snapped at the chance and said, yes, I would like to hear those. So I went in there, and these 2026s are pretty imposing speakers. Okay, the demo room was a bit bigger than mine, but not that much bigger. And I went in and I sat down, and the guy put on a 7-inch single of Queen. I think it's Queen. It's either Queen or Freddie Mercury solo. I think it's actually Queen. Those Were the Days of Our Lives. Is that a Queen single or was that a Freddie solo? I don't know. Anyway, but whatever it was, obviously I know the song, and it was absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous beyond gorgeous. Now let's just go into this system a little bit more. Okay, the RP10 is the record player above the one that I have. Okay, it comes with a ceramic platter, which is similar to that was on the old P9. Okay, this platter is made out of the same material supposedly that they use on the space shuttle. So it's, if any part of a turntable has to be heavy, it is the turntable platter. And I had to go and touch it, I think. In fact, well, I don't think, I know. I said, can I touch this thing? And I very gingerly put one finger on it. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, it had a Mark 1 Afita on it. We're on the Afita 2 now. So that must have just been old stock kind of thing that they had, and they put it on there. And the arm on it, I don't know the model name of the arm, but it's an upgraded version of their RB arms. Okay, mine is the RB 808, and I can't remember the model number of that one. Perhaps I should look it up. Shall I do that now online while I'm videoing you? Okay, we're starting Safari, Captain. Although Firefox is open, let's go into Firefox. Let's quit that. Okay, we're going into Firefox. Captain, we're going into Firefox. I'm not sure what's happening to my video here. Let's just go to Riga. Okay, I think I'm going to minimize my window a little bit while I do that. Okay, can you still see me, people? Can you see me, mother? Okay, so I think we're getting a recording here. I hope it hasn't gone off. Yep, still playing. Okay, so we're going to go to the product range. We'll go to the turntables. We'll go to the turntables any day now. We'll get there. The internet is not particularly good where I live here, it has to be said. Alright, so I'm looking at a lovely RP10 here. The evolution of revolution. Okay, so we'll have a look at the ARM here. Ah, it's the RB2000. Yeah, because the P9 had an RB1000 and this is an RB2000. It's a lovely silver thing. Okay, the power supply for the RP10 is an upgraded version of the TT-PSU. Okay, and I hope in some respects it's better. Okay, although it's not an issue in real life everyday situations, if you turn your amplifier up right to full volume, by the time you've got to 3/4 of the way round, you've got quite a lot of hum. Okay, it's not an issue when played at normal volume levels. If you get to 3/4 of the way up and you're playing music, then you're probably listening from the other side of the street or somewhere like that, because it is, you know, it will be that loud. Okay, so, but yeah, I hope that the upgraded PSU on the RP10 is better than that. Okay. So yeah, and then it's playing into the Elicit-R. Now I've spoken about the Elicit-R before, and I'll come back to it a bit later. Okay, I've heard the Elicit-R before, although obviously in the context of a different system. Okay, and we had an ARIA phono stage, which I've obviously got, and very, very lovely thing indeed. The more you listen to it, the more actually you don't listen to it. It's something that is there, but it's not there. You know, it lends this very kind of the record player's disappeared from your system kind of feel to it. You know, you're just not aware that you're playing records. Okay, yeah, these PMCs, these wonderful PMC speakers, and I said to him, what cable have you got on there? And he said something like it's called Epic or something like that. I said, oh, how much is that? Because it sounded rather good. And he said it's £50 a metre, and I said, oh, perhaps I won't have any of that then. And he said, well, it's obviously not out of context in that system. Okay, and it, yeah, he's right, probably not out of context in that system. Okay, the 2026 speakers, the PMC 2026 speakers are probably a tiny bit bigger than my RS5s. You can see an RS5 speaker over by my piano there, trying its best not to fire into a corner. That's the best I can get it, I'm afraid, at the moment. Yeah, it's a transmission line speaker, which means its internal gubbins are different from an ordinary box cone speaker. I don't really know how. I think they've got an Ashley Cox come on to this video and tell me a little bit more about what a transmission line speaker is. But I think it's got sort of a length of tubing inside it, which is kind of folded up so that if you were to unfold it, you'd have the length of a bus or something like that. But it's wound up inside it, and that's what is sort of, I don't know really, but that's essentially what it's got. What it doesn't have is a hole anywhere for a bass port. Okay, it's got two kind of vents at the bottom that act as kind of a vent for the transmission line, but it's not a bass port as such. So we're listening to Those Were the Days of Our Lives by Freddie Mercury or Queen, and just really the only thing I was aware of was this man's dead, and it's like having this real life breathing person in your room. Okay, and you know, the piano was just wonderful, you know, fully weighted keys, you know, someone playing the piano, you know, and not something that sounds like a piano being played. Okay, I can sort of get a lot of that from my system here. But this was just something to behold. It was just like an ethereal kind of experience, really. It's very hard to kind of pinpoint exactly what in the system was doing what, because I don't have many of those components there. Okay, I've kind of said that the ARIA phono stage is one way in which the actual record player takes a back seat from the system in a very positive way. Okay, if you were to take one of the aforementioned record players from the 70s with a spindle where the singles drop down onto the platter, and then you have this this arm automatically move over, and then a cartridge that is the record playing equivalent of a pneumatic drill playing your records, then you are aware that there is a record player playing. You're aware that music is coming out of a speaker. And with the ARIA phono stage in place, you're not. You're getting a view, as it were, of the musicians playing. Okay, and I'll go back to what I've said earlier this year in a video I made about the ARIA phono stage. The difference between that and my Creek phono stage, which was my outgoing thing that I used to have with my P5, and I listened to Replicas. I think that was the first album I played on it by Gary Newman, and the guitar on there, which the guitar kind of takes a back seat on Replicas. It's a synth album essentially, and you're just aware of probably Gary himself, and him actually moving around playing the record, the neck of the guitar moving, the phrasing of the playing. That's the difference. That's the difference. It's not a thing playing your music, it's actually a person playing your music. Going back to this system that I heard in Audio T in Southampton yesterday, that's what I heard, just musicians. And I kind of thought, for such a huge speaker and not a very big room, where's the overpowering bass? I can't, obviously, it was playing and the bass was playing, as it were, but it wasn't overpowering you, okay? And the volume levels at which he had it were at levels that you had to maybe not shout, but you certainly had to talk very loudly to be heard over it. You certainly had to turn it down to be able to comfortably hear yourself talking, which is louder than I normally play music in here. Okay, and everything just felt so comfortable, so relaxed, and just it's just a really, really natural sounding system. Okay, I don't play music that loud in here because I'm worried about my neighbours. Okay, but I know as well, I've been talking about it, the last video I made about speaker setup, one of the things that I should have said was that if you have got bass resonance in your room, one of the things you can actually do to alleviate that is to turn the system down a little bit. You're probably playing it too loud, but this was playing at not full whack obviously, but halfway up the amplifier's volume system. Okay, and you just didn't feel it at all. You just heard beautiful music, just sort of being relaxed. Now the albums I bought there yesterday were these two. Okay, News of the World by Queen. This is literally hot off the press. It's 2 days old for this release. It's as the coloured vinyl box set was released, but all the albums are available separately, but on black vinyl. Okay, released on Virgin. I think Virgin are now a subsidiary of EMI, and EMI is a subsidiary of Universal. But the original Queen albums were released on EMI, so that's like sort of one difference. But anyway, I bought this album, and I also bought this album as well. It's the only Rod Stewart album I own. It contains the single You Wear It Well, which I really love. And again, it's one of those things that I can remember from the dim distant past, around about 74 or something like that, hearing it on the radio and really enjoying it. And so it's got a lot of nice little memories there for me. So here's Rod Stewart, and I said to him, can I play You Wear It Well from this album? And he said, yeah, of course you can. So we opened it up. And what we opened up was an album that was absolutely filthy. It had a lot of residue that was left over from the stamping process, so they had to clean it for me. I need to clean it properly more properly than they cleaned it. They took basically a gold ring sort of brush thing and just cleaned it with that. But it needs to go in my anti-stat, I think. But we played You Wear It Well from here after we cleaned it. And fun people, again, the same volume levels as Freddie Mercury. But absolutely, it's just having an absolute whale of a time. And again, that bass was really controlled. There's no kind of feeling of any kind of coloration whatsoever. And that, I believe, is down to the PMC speakers, which are just so relaxed. Yes, they look quite intimidating in your room because they're big, okay? I heard the 2023s the last time I went to Audio T in Brighton, and I just fell in love with them at sight, and that you can place them anywhere. You can chuck them in your room against the wall, and they just play beautifully, and they're not too big. But these 2026s, the music was just totally freed up from the speakers, and just wonderful, just absolutely wonderful. Really, really enjoyed it. Okay, now for me, though, although those 2026s are something that I fell in love with, and if I ever had a big enough house and enough money, I would buy a pair. But for me, I suppose not necessarily the star of the show, but the surprise of the show was this Elicit-R amplifier, because if you've been following me on YouTube, I did a demo of the Elicit-R, which is the amplifier I've got, and the Elicit-R playing side by side. Now the Elicit-R is nearly double the price of the Elicit-R, and they in Brighton, they played it through the Riga RS3 speakers. Now the Riga RS3 speakers are great speakers, okay? There is no doubt about it. These are the RS3s, not the new RX3, okay? The RX3 is a completely different speaker altogether, and is meant to take the place of the old RS5s, okay? The RS3 was an upgrade of the old R system. You can't buy RS3s now unless you can find sort of out-of-date stock online or somewhere like that. They're not current anymore, okay? But they are an upgrade of the old R range from the mid-2000s, okay? They're an extremely good speaker, but realistically, budget-wise and everything like that, they're not really intended for really high-end gear. They're intended for sort of budget hi-fi. They're a budget floor standing speaker. And so I think to play an Elicit-R through them possibly was stretching the capabilities of those speakers just a little bit, okay? And when I demoed the Elicit-R with my albums in Brighton, I felt that the bass was just a little bit out of control. I was being pinned up against the wall. Now that's fabulous when you go to a live event, because when you go to a live event, you're listening to real instruments. You haven't got quite this sort of barrage of electronics that's getting in the way. You haven't got this tiny room that just makes it feel uncomfortable to be that pinned to the wall. You haven't got neighbours to think about either, so I thought perhaps it's a bit too full on. Chucking it into the system that I heard yesterday with those PMC 2026 speakers was a completely different kettle of fish. Now, you know, again, put the PMCs in their context. They are 4 times the price of that amplifier. And, you know, you could argue that you could upgrade that amplification many times before you kind of exhausted the capabilities of the 2026 speakers, okay? But with the Elicit-R in that system, it was controlled. You weren't, although obviously it was, you heard the bass, you didn't sort of have to sort of do a double take and a backseat and then sort of pin yourself up against the wall thinking, oh my god, get me out of this room. It was just so natural, and at that volume level that they had that, where, you know, if you're having to be to shout to be heard in your house, that's going to be too loud, okay? And it was just beautiful. It was just beautiful, and so I haven't changed my opinion about the Elicit-R, but it reinforces what I said earlier on in another video, that the Elicit-R wants and will reward extremely good speakers. Okay, that was really my experience yesterday. Okay, too much travelling. I would have liked to have spent more time in the shop. I would like to have heard one of these Queen turntables, just to say that I'd heard one and just to say that I'd touched one, but that wasn't to be. They couldn't open up the 2 that they had left, and I reckon that by the time that a lot of you are watching this on YouTube, that those 2 Queen turntables will have gone. There won't be many left in the country for sale. In fact, there probably won't be any left in the country to sell, and possibly the world, actually, given that the UK has got 25% of the run of that turntable, and you know, that doesn't really leave very many for the rest of the world to kind of to have. If you've got a Queen turntable, do a demo with it, especially if you've got the coloured vinyl box set. Do a demo of it on YouTube so that we can all see it. And B, keep it, look after it. I would almost say, don't play it. I would say, I'd say just keep it, because it will be a collectible at at some point in the future. Probably worth an awful lot more than it's very in hi-fi terms. It costs it doesn't even cost as much as an RP3. If you are going to play it with a bias cartridge on it, and not with a carbon. Okay, it will reward far better than that, especially if it's got the motor from the RP3 in it. That motor is very stable and and very solid, and it will make your record sound good. Okay, but there you go. That's what happened to me yesterday, and so obviously I bought this album. I say obviously, but it's not obviously, but there you go. I bought this album. I bought the News of the World album. Okay, and the other week I pre-ordered News of the World. No, I didn't. I pre-ordered A Night at the Opera, okay, which is here, and which arrived yesterday. So I've had a lovely time this morning. Very lazy day, just playing my albums. And this one, I have to say, is absolutely stunning. Okay, these new black vinyl reissues are great. They sound absolutely beautiful. There's no documentation here telling you where they've mastered it from, but on the News of the World one, I will read you exactly what it says. And also, this is rather nice. You get the original cardboard sort of inner sleeve, but you also get a nice anti-static sleeve as well for your record. Just protects it a tiny little bit more. These are slightly abrasive, but What does it say on here? This vinyl album has been meticulously recreated using the finest technology from the original first generation master mixes. Okay, so they haven't come from a 97th generation cassette tape. Okay, so you are, getting pretty much, what it sounded like back in the day. Okay, but on fantastic, really heavy vinyl. Okay, the Rod Stewart album doesn't appear to be much of a slouch in terms of the thickness of the vinyl, but both of these albums, taking them out, it is like taking out a concrete slab or something. It really is that heavy. And do I look better like this? Great stuff, people. Keep enjoying your vinyl. Bye.